right, Cole, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you doing, Duane?
I'm doing all right. We are doing the on the road mobile version of Math on the Rocks because where are you right now?
I am in the middle of the grape fields, headed to a volleyball game. So all kinds of fun stuff today. But I made time for you because I can't get enough of it.
Sure, sure. And then we still have our classic red square because Scott is golf practice right now with the team. He may join us or he may not. So there you go. Hey, what's our big CMC Central news going on right now?
So next week we have our next Inspiring Math Minds webinar, 4 o'clock, and we have Brandon Smith joining us from Mind Institute, talking about the joy of mathematics. So that will be a live webinar next week, and then recorded and put to the website shortly after that.
That dude is wonderful. I like him. He's full of energy. People are going to absolutely love him. And that's great. That is great. How are we doing in terms of the planning for the CMC symposium?
Good. I was actually checking the list yesterday. I know we were kind of worried about who's going to be there and all, and I think we are much closer to a full speaker lineup than we might have thought as I started to count the sessions that people would be doing. So this weekend at our board meeting, I'm excited to share with you kind of where we're at, and we continuously get can I speak? Can I speak? Can I speak? So I think the word is growing and people are starting to think about it again. And so I'm confident it's going to be a great lineup and a fun time for people.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. All right. So for the people who do listen to our Math on the Rocks episodes, there's generally two ways you can listen to this, engage in this podcast. One includes the video, and then the other one is audio only. Today, maybe it might benefit you if you're watching the video version of our podcast, which you can download from or view from YouTube or Spotify. If you want to do the audio only version, you can download our podcast from Apple or Spotify. And then I guess you can also download it from or view it from YouTube and just not watch the screen. But if you're not watching the screen, then you wouldn't see Scott's face. Scott just popped in.
Hey, how you doing?
We're doing
Look in the
great.
mirror before I popped in here. Holy cow!
No, we already outed you as you were already.
I mean, our pictures look like before, middle, and after. I don't know what's going on with our hairlines.
Oh,
Wait, who's after?
I'm long gone. That's all I know.
You're definitely the before picture, Cole. Definitely before picture.
All right. Well, Scott, welcome. We were just getting into the main chunk of the podcast. This is like we are on it. Now, Scott, I'm going to tell you, and for the benefit of the audience that is listening, Cole and I have tried to record this stinking episode no less than 3 times, but it has been a freaking comedy of errors with me. So I own it. Every week I'm coming up with a new way to screw up the technology. And so I think this is like the 4th time we're going to try and record this stinking topic. It's a great topic, but I just keep ruin the technology. So Scott, you're just going to jump in, man, midstream. You're going to figure it out because you're a pro.
I was having FOMO on this whole thing and no need for it. All right.
No, it was a comedy of techno errors. And so and now here's the sad thing though. People are going to listen to this podcast and they're going to go, really? You've had 3 previous tries to have this conversation and you still fumble your way through the damn conversation? So the answer is yes, people. Yes, because we're keeping it fresh every single time. No scripts, no safety net, because we have no clue. We're just going.
Wait. You forgot the no budget?
No budget.
Yeah, no budget. Yeah, there you
go. Yep. All right, Cole, get us started. And for the benefit of the audience and for Scott, who's actually right now just part of the audience right now.
Yeah, so it's been, several weeks ago now, we had our last episode, and we were really talking about this kind of conundrum the districts are finding themselves in as they are starting to explore how to implement the big ideas in the new framework. And this conundrum is coming from some work that I've been doing with districts where they are reinvesting in professional learning community work. So they are, diving back into grade level PLCs, district-wide initiatives. And one of the first things they do when they engage in that is to go and identify your essential standards or your guaranteed and viable curriculum. What are the things that kids have to leave your grade level with? Um, and but then we look at the math framework, and that suggests, well, you really should teach math not to these isolated topics, but to these bigger ideas where things are interconnected. And at first glance, you know, without a lot of conversation back and forth, like it really feels or felt like it was one or the other. Right, I couldn't do big ideas and live true to what PLCs or whatever flavor of PLC, whether it be achievement teams, impact teams, the PLC, or whatever model you go, it kind of felt like they were always at odds with each other. Um, and so I was really grappling with how can I support a district who really wants this PLC work and believes in it and is investing in it. And then me coming along with the new framework and saying, but you really should be considering this for good math instruction. And so that's kind of the crossroads, the rockiness that I've been living, is how to support districts on what seems to be competing ideas.
The idea of slicing and dicing of a PLC, and yet the big ideas that the framework is asking for in chapter 2.
Yep.
How do we live in harmony? And so I had a little bit of a breakthrough, and then Cole, can I talk about the breakthrough? Is that?
Oh yeah, that
okay?
That helped me. That grounded me for sure.
Okay, so I was in a fifth grade classroom, and of course, the fifth grade teacher wanted the students to sort decimals from least to greatest, a very sliced and diced, narrow, discrete skill, very not big ideas. And so the teacher is teaching, and I'm co-teaching with him, and he's doing a great job. And essentially, we have 4 decimals that the students are supposed to be sorting from least to greatest. And, it wasn't a heavy lift to get essentially 100% of the class successfully having sorted those 4 decimals. We were doing this, by the way, in BTC style. So they were all standing at their whiteboards, and every single group successfully sorted their decimals from least to greatest. But the conversation about how they know they were in order from least to greatest made me nervous. And they were essentially talking about alphabetizing the numbers. Line up the decimals, but then look at the first digit, the 10th digit, and sort. And when there's a tie, you look next door at the 100th place and continue sorting. And it was really just this mechanical alphabetizing. And so I said, all right, now guys, I want you to go back to your boards, and with these same 4 decimals, I want you to place them on this number line from 0 to 1. Go. And so they're like, all right. So here they are, these kids, they already know the numbers from least to greatest. So they had that. But then when it came to putting those numbers on a number line, all hell broke loose. Decimals were all over. There was this brand new order about how they placed them on the number line versus how they had alphabetized them prior. And it just hit me that there was this discrepancy between teaching the kids how to get the answer versus teaching the kids how to understand a concept. In this case, that numbers live on a number line. And so suddenly this discrete skill of sorting from least to greatest got bigger, because we're also saying, well, wait a second, put it on this number line, model this. What's the visual representation? And that was our, my big, huge, takeaway, I guess. And so this is where, for the people, if you're on YouTube, you're already seeing the screen. We've got this ugly web. And for the people just listening to the audio only, pretend you're looking at an ugly web. All right. So, Cole, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I want to back up though for a second because all of that was happening, right? And we had just recorded the previous episode where I had laid out the problem, and then I think you put that video on YouTube, right? That story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you put that story on YouTube, and I started like reflecting on it and saying, wait, I think you might have just solved my problem, and through that, and it really came down to this idea of when we think about bigger ideas, we've trapped them in the way that are described in the framework as it has to be this way, and it has to be all of your grade level. But sometimes the big ideas are the connections of all the things that kids know and are able to do, right? Up until that point, and helping them see the connections and the transfer of those skills. And I think hearing you talk about your story and the teacher side of that really like unlocked for me, like I was thinking too black and white about big ideas. And so then I said, okay, well, I'm going to dive in now then to fifth grade because you were doing that. I think it was like NF3 or something like that.
NBT.
MBT3, thank you.
Yeah.
And I started looking at it, I was like, well, if I was doing that, what big ideas does the framework say that it's attached to? And I looked, and one of them, you were using a number line, was modeling. And so I scrolled back up, and I said, well, let's look at that. And then I noticed that modeling is the largest node in this map. And, for those that don't know or haven't dove into the framework yet or had a chance to dive in yet, the size of the nodes are actually the number of connections that big idea has to other big ideas in the grade level. Well, modeling is the largest. So that tells me that in fifth grade, I should be doing a heck of a lot of modeling of these concepts to really help kids make those connections.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, well, that's brilliant. And then I started thinking, well, then what else in fifth grade might I want to model? I said, So then I scrolled back down and I looked for the modeling big idea, and it lays out for you, here are all the standards that are connected to this bigger idea that I could be thinking about in that. And so it was really definitely pushed my thinking. I really appreciated this idea of connecting topics and connecting domains, but I don't think I really dove deep enough or was open to being brought, deep enough to those cross grade level connections that you were suggesting kind of through that.
Yeah. Scott, I'm gonna throw this to you in a second. So there's 9 big ideas in fifth grade. I don't know about sixth grade, seventh grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, but the idea being, at least in this one instance, fifth grade, there's 9 nodes, 9 big ideas, but 8 of them all lead directly to modeling. So modeling is connected to the other 8 big ideas. Like it's almost like, for me, ever since I kind of had this little emotional academic breakthrough, is my now go-to move anytime I'm teaching something is, what visual representation can I attach to this discrete idea? Because almost by definition, if I'm attaching a visual model to this discrete idea, I've just created a big idea, that kind of a thing. Scott, you're the big macho high school guy here in this group. Oh, except right now, I just about to go, okay, go Scott, and his classroom is
perfect timing, man. Got a guy announced those late buses heading out. All right, go ahead.
So my softball pitch to you, Mr. Softball and golf coach, is: do you see modeling as a go-to move as part of your high school? Are you seeing where modeling, or like, what's a go-to move for taking a discrete skill at the high school level and turning it into a big idea? Do you have one?
I think it's one of those things you don't want to do this on the fly. I think you definitely with intention, you've got to kind of think these through. I mean, if you have those moments, run with them. But for the most part, if I was to try to do this on the fly, throw some modeling in, where it would probably be less effective. Interestingly enough, I actually did a a study on something very similar to this. We're just giving kids context. For instance, writing linear equations. I was involved in a building project, so I actually brought in a scaled down piece of wall. It was only 2 feet high, but it had a footer. It had the header. The studs were on 18 centers, and it said, "Hey, how many pieces of wood would I need for 2 feet, 4 feet, 10 feet, and then get to the end X feet?" And interestingly enough, about 80% of the kids I did other things like that with, you own a catering company, writing systems and doing all those types of things. I had about 3 different subjects I did this with, and about 80% of the kids homework and engagement went up by giving it context.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, though, that 20%, guess where they are?
I don't
Do you have
know.
a guess what students they are who didn't engage?
No.
They're my A students. They're like, dude, just cut to it. Give it to me. I don't want the context.
Sure.
And I found that extremely interesting. But I'm that kid, though. I'm the kid in high school who looked at his buddies to the left, right, and said, "How do you do this?" And they're just like, "Well, you just do it."
Right.
No, you don't just do it. I didn't have that kind of mind. I know, granted, I was referred to as a grinder. I just had to grind it out. Math never came easy to me, which is part of the reason why I teach math, because I think I have a good idea of what it's like to grind it out and try to make it work. But context made all the difference in the world to me. Give me a reason why, or an application for this particular skill set, which I think now we're calling modeling. Really, if you can model this for me, I can apply it.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go ahead, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I think you're tying it all together. Like earlier grades, modeling might be literally visual models that we're using these visual concrete things to represent the math concept.
As simple as like a 10 frame.
Yeah, but then as you're getting higher in the grade level and more sophisticated in the math, modeling, the idea of modeling changes shape and changes form. And now you're doing mathematical modeling rather than concrete or visual modeling. So I can imagine your studs and your wood material for building a wall kind of a thing. That happens to be a physical model, but you can then start using like spreadsheets to start modeling your length of your wall and the height of the wall and how much wood you're going to need. And so suddenly the word modeling shifts from something concrete, like in 5th grade, a number line, to something a little bit more abstract, like a spreadsheet or something, but it's still modeling. Yeah.
So this idea of context that Scott brings up, though, it really makes me think that's something, though, that is translatable all the way down into, TK and kindergarten, right? Providing them that context. Because whenever we sat on the committee and this was first proposed, they said, like, how do you think teachers will feel about if we shifted away from this? Because the authors of the framework knew that this was going to be a big, monumental shift from the way we've done business. And as it was explained to me the first time, I said, well, this is exactly like what they would be doing if they engaged in math in the world, right? You don't go outside and say, today I'm only going to bring everything I know about the number-based 10 system with me when I go to the grocery store. Right? You're bringing all of these skill sets and all of this math knowledge with you. And then you, as the expert of your knowledge, decide, which toolkits am I going to apply to whatever scenario. And it might change depending on what aisle in the grocery store you're in, even, right? As you're thinking about all of those skills.
Yep. So I'm like, I was at a kindergarten class this morning and talking about context. So I walk into the classroom and the teacher says, "We're teaching this lesson." And I look at it and it's combinations to 5. And so it's some crap curriculum that shall remain nameless. But the lesson itself was just junk. It was like, it would give 5 circles and it would say, color 3 circles red and 2 circles yellow, and it was just giving the kids this variety of just boring tasks. And so I saw it, and she said, "How would you do this lesson?" And I told her, "I wouldn't." And so instead, um, we got the kids seated down on the carpet, and I'm in front of a small little whiteboard, and I tell them the story that when I was driving to the Grand, I passed a creek and I saw frogs, and the kids were spellbound. They're like, freaking frogs! He saw frogs, everybody. And I said, and some of the frogs were on a lily pad. And we had to talk a little bit about a lily pad, but the kids pretty much knew what a lily pad was. And I said, and some of the frogs, the rest of the frogs were, and the kids go, swimming. And I went, yeah, sure, they were swimming. And I said, so here's what I want you to do. Now, meanwhile, while I'm telling this story to like 23 enraptured kids, we had the aides getting sticks of 5 cubes, and they all happen to be green. They're all green cubes, which is why I chose frogs as the context, right? And so we're getting all these sticks of cubes. And I said, I am going to give you some frogs, and I want you to arrange your frogs, some of them on the lily pad and some of them swimming in the water. And they did this on their whiteboards, and they colored the lily pad, they made the water. It was a context. And they at first they didn't know what the hell I was asking for, because school's only been in session for like 3 weeks, and these kids are like, they're still trying to learn how to what being a student is. But once they understood the idea of, they were taking these cubes and they were frogs, and some of the frogs were on lily pads and some of them were swimming, and then they would write the number sentence. 2 + 3 makes 5. Yay! And I would say, that is wonderful. Can you find another combination? And they would say, yes. And they would sit down and they would go to work, right? Context helps the kids access the content. Modeling gives the kids access to the math. Mm-hmm. And it turned this simple thing, essentially counting to 5, combinations to 5, into a bigger idea. So we could even do it at kindergarten.
What's interesting about that, though, talking to teachers, I often hear drawing the picture or using a model is like somehow lowering the demand or the rigor of the standards, right? Like it's dumbing it down for kids.
Right.
But then we see it laid out here in the framework saying, like, no, this really is probably the most important thing that you can do as a teacher when you're helping teach your content.
Yep.
It's fascinating to me, kind of our mindset and beliefs that we've kind of been instilled with, through our past education, to really where we're trying to shift now. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
You touched on something, Duane, I think is really important. It's something that I've had conversations on this going back 6, 8, 10 years. Carl Veder, a colleague of all of ours, we always talked about how are we going to bring equity to the classroom. And we really kind of distilled it down to is what kids need is those common experiences that we all can talk about and share about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in our society, though, those kids don't have those. Not everyone has those shared common experiences. If that kindergarten class, you found someone that was either if a kid hadn't seen a frog, they could get on board with it, but most kids understood that concept, and they all could be in that. They all got to be part of the inside group. And the trick is doing that all the way up through high school. I think that's where giving context is tougher, because we have that 6 degrees of separation, but it's tiny in kindergarten. But man, is it wide when we get into upper high school, even through middle school, and it's harder to bring those common pieces together.
Yeah.
So I think that's why this is also important, though, because it also builds. Yeah, we're building math, but there's also some of the other holes we're filling in this kid. Maybe isn't even necessarily math.
So true.
Provide them other learning opportunities.
So I think context allows kids to access the mathematics.
Mhm.
The modeling, whether it's physical modeling, concrete, pictorial modeling, abstract modeling with spreadsheets, allows us to access the math at a higher rigor
Mhm.
than just pure abstract numbers. So context and then modeling, and that starts to become a formula for how do we take these discrete ideas that a textbook is nothing but a sequence of discrete skills, and how do we turn them into big ideas? I mean, there's your formula. Context and modeling is a kind of easy 1-2 punch.
Right.
And go ahead, sorry, Cole.
Well, and I'm just thinking, like, kind of back to the top. What we're talking about though is like how, if my district is telling me that these are the essential ideas that I need,
Mm-hmm.
right? And our publishers hopefully are actually going to start building resources to bridge this gap to the new framework, right? Knowing that, how are we then? Can we see that guaranteed those essential standards of guaranteed and viable curriculum, like, in that product, to still observe or measure that kids are leaving with what they have to know, but it's being taught through this bigger connection of topics. And I might emphasize one more than another, on the way through, but I'm still helping them see kind of the forest through the trees of math.
Yeah, although I'm going to be skeptical. I don't think those PLC companies are going to update themselves to keep up with the big ideas. I think they're still going to ask teachers to slice and dice, which is going to be even trickier when if the curriculum is honoring the big ideas. But now the teachers are still being asked to slice and dice. I'm really skeptical about the PLC people. I don't. I think I do better work than they do. in that, it's like we do need to understand the standards, and we do need to do that stuff. But man, we have to update with the way we do work and make it with the big ideas instead of these sliced and diced minuscule skills.
Here's the thing, though, and I guess maybe I share some skepticism too, because here's the thing: while modeling is the hub kind of this, I kind of look at it as it's a kind of a sloppy wheel with lots of weird spokes. It's not one of those things that I really think that you can't do it all the time. It can't be the only strategy. It's kind of like when you go into language, like whole language versus phonics. You got to find a balance. It's not one or the other. It's a combination thereof to support the student learning.
Sure.
And if we're wandering outside that, man, we're in trouble. I think we got to find that. What we're looking for is what is that balance point.
Yeah.
Each class and each kid, and it can be down as simple as it comes down to a class, or your whole caseload, part of a caseload, even maybe those special ed kids, maybe those student groups that we're trying to focus on to build up. We got to attack them just a little bit differently each and every way. That balance will be different.
Indeed. Cole, anything for the good of the order?
No, I continue to encourage teachers to, while we're still waiting for materials, to go find one of the vignettes in the framework and just try it. They're kind of laid out by big idea. They are helping you connect multiple standards and just experience it. What went well with you and your philosophy and style, what went well with the kids, what might you do differently, and start to reflect on that process. Because I have seen that some, not all, but some publishers are moving in this direction. And it's better to kind of get ahead of the curve so that you're looking for some of those more aligned products maybe down the road. So again, I just go experiment, go fail, it's learn from it and continue making good decisions for kids.
Yeah. And for me, I'm thinking, okay, so Scott, you're making me feel like, okay, maybe I oversimplified too much, but here's my thinking is, so when we're still using our old textbooks while we're waiting for new stuff to come in, I'm going to teach stuff. And because each lesson is still discrete skills, that's cool. I'm still going to have to, that's my learning target for the day, but I'm going to use this web. And when I'm thinking about, okay, what node is my lesson today living in? Am I teaching something about division or fractions or place value or cubes or whatever? And then I'm going to look at this web to say, can I get inspired to in the middle of this lesson, or as part of this lesson, bring in some of the nodes that are also connected to my target node that I'm teaching today. And that's going to be my thing. So like if I'm looking at fractions, I'm going to say, well, fractions is connected to place value, fractions is connected to plotting patterns, and fractions is connected to modeling. Great. So in my lesson, can I somehow bring in one of these other topics to help augment my discrete lesson that I'm supposed to teach? So that's going to be my action plan for
Start small.
And for teachers, really, just like, can we do that?
Yeah.
Use this web as your inspiration every time you're teaching something. Can you make a connection?
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. And God willing, this sucker will actually record and I'll actually be able to post it. Let's
Stop
hope.
feeding the gremlins after midnight, man. Come on.
Let's hope, man. This is great. I hope everybody who is still on hits the subscribe button, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, and leave us some comments because we need some attaboys because we need it. And that's it, guys. Love talking to you guys. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
Yep. See you later, guys.
See you soon.